Something unusual is happening in West Africa. Young people aren't just protesting their governments anymore, they're turning their anger toward ECOWAS, the very organization that was meant to unite them. And standing at the center of this storm, a 35-year-old soldier named Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Why are so many young people backing a man regional leaders want to silence? And why are they turning their backs on one of the continent's most powerful institutions? To understand that, we need to go deeper. At a time when many West African politicians seem more focused on pleasing foreign powers than serving their own people, one man is rewriting the script. Captain Traoré didn't come with grand speeches or media campaigns. He came with action bold, unapologetic, and deeply African. And that's exactly why so many young people are rallying behind him. But to truly grasp the moment, we have to understand the frustration that's been building for years. This is a generation born into freedom on paper, but still trapped by systems built long ago, systems that drain their resources, ignore their needs, and reward loyalty to outsiders over service to their own people. They watched ECOWAS promise unity, but deliver silence. They saw reform after reform fall flat. So when Traoré rose up, not with open hands but with a firm stance, something clicked. It wasn't just about one leader anymore, it was about reclaiming dignity. The Economic Community of West African States, better known as ECOWAS, was once seen as the hope for regional unity. It was built to bring countries together and help them grow stronger side by side. But over time, many have come to see it not as a force for good, but as a tool for control, silence, and betrayal. So when Captain Ibrahim Traoré came to power and shut the door on foreign begging, the reaction from young people was fast and powerful. Across Africa, youth groups shared his quotes. His speeches turned into ringtones on TikTok. His image appeared on protest banners, and his name echoed in the streets. Even young people who had never cared about politics began to rally not behind parties, but behind principles. His message was simple: Africa must stand on its own or remain trapped serving others. Traoré didn't need foreign aid or embassy approval to lead this change. He only needed to show that you can say no and still survive. That a country can tear up colonial deals, take back its gold, and remove foreign soldiers without falling apart. That leadership based on courage, not apologies, is possible. To many young people in Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Togo, and Senegal, this wasn't just another political moment, it was permission. Permission to question why ECOWAS punishes countries that try to stand on their own, but stays silent on corruption. To wonder why this regional bloc always seems to protect the same powerful families, foreign companies, and old alliances, even while claiming to stand for democracy. For them, this isn't rebellion, it's reality. They face high fuel prices, food shortages, health care cuts from IMF loans, and visa rules that treat their dreams like crimes. So when ECOWAS slapped sanctions on Burkina Faso after Traoré took over, young people across the region didn't see it as protecting peace. They saw it as ECOWAS punishing someone for doing what they all wished they could do. That's why Traoré's support goes far beyond his country. To many, he's not just Burkina Faso's leader, he's becoming a bold voice for all of Africa. And he's challenging more than just foreign powers, like France or the UN. He's also calling out African institutions that have sided with the old system for too long. Traoré has sparked a shift from quietly respecting ECOWAS to loudly rejecting it. His rise has led young people to look past religion, party, or military rank, and instead ask a deeper question: who actually stood up for Africa? And in that new awareness lies ECOWAS' biggest problem: Not because Traoré is a soldier, but because he's revealing how out of touch the organization has become with the people it claims to represent. If you're enjoying this kind of content focused on African history, culture, identity, and truth, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Now, let's move on. Young people aren't rallying behind Traoré just because he's different. They're supporting him because he proved African leaders don't need outside approval to lead. And they're not sad to see that old myth die. But here's the question. Why has ECOWAS fallen so far out of favor? The very generation it was supposed to bring together is now mocking it. What was once celebrated as a beacon of cooperation is now seen as a stronghold for the powerful, protecting the very people who have failed their citizens. Today, ECOWAS no longer symbolizes unity. Protest signs, street chants, and hashtags all point to one thing: betrayal. This isn't a small shift, it's a collapse in trust that's been growing for years. The real breaking point wasn't just the coups or the sanctions, it was about who ECOWAS chooses to protect and who it leaves behind. When ECOWAS rushed to condemn military takeovers in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, young people had a simple question. Where was this energy when our so-called elected leaders were stealing, killing, and lying? The silence back then was deafening. In Senegal, massive protests broke out over political arrests and police abuse. Reporters were jailed. Opposition figures were banned from running for office. But ECOWAS said nothing. No tough statements, no travel bans, no sanctions. But when Burkina Faso's army removed a government that had lost control of half the country to rebels, ECOWAS responded quickly with penalties aimed not at the chaos makers, but at the soldiers trying to restore order. That sent a clear message to the youth. ECOWAS defends the elite, not the people. Even in Ghana, often praised as a democratic role model, young people talk about ECOWAS like it's an outsider, only showing up when there's trouble, never when help is needed. These sanctions don't fix schools, create jobs, or improve health care. They mostly appear in press conferences or when Western officials need to claim Africa is solving its own problems. And that's the core issue. ECOWAS may be based in Africa, but its direction feels like it comes from elsewhere. Youth movements are paying attention. They've noticed that ECOWAS often echoes the views of Washington, Paris, and Brussels, especially when criticizing governments that refuse to follow the same transition plans foreign powers prefer. Even if the civilian plan ultimately results in anarchy. Even worse, the bloc's model hasn't changed yet. The organization keeps pushing for textbook-style democracy in a region dealing with poverty, conflict, and a fast-growing population. It says elections must come first, then stability. But young people aren't living in textbooks. They're living in reality where the same leaders accused of failure are the ones running those elections, where votes can be bought, and where speaking out gets silenced. They're tired of hearing ECOWAS praise democracy while ignoring how it's abused. That's why students, activists, and online groups are now calling for what they describe as a second liberation. The first was from colonial rulers. The second, they say, must break free from the modern systems that still keep Africa dependent. For many, ECOWAS, an African institution that often echoes foreign interests, is the perfect example of that problem. To challenge it, youth-led groups like Pan-African Generation and the New Sahel movement are launching petitions, holding forums, and building unity across borders. They're calling for a new definition of what makes a government legitimate, one that includes providing safety, jobs, education, and food, not just holding elections. They want ECOWAS to stop punishing countries that distance themselves from the West and start holding accountable those leaders who fail their own people. They want ECOWAS to stop acting like a gatekeeper for ex-colonial powers and become a real voice for African independence. And there's a clear generational divide. Most ECOWAS leaders are over 60. Most Africans are under 25. That difference shows in how they think, speak, and act. Older leaders speak of patience, diplomacy, and waiting. Young people speak of justice, urgency, and change. Traoré speaks their language. ECOWAS doesn't. When ECOWAS tried to isolate Traoré, it backfired. To many youth, those warnings about military rule sounded more like warnings against taking control of their future. And when ECOWAS threatened sanctions, they overlooked something important. Many young Africans already feel punished by debt, unemployment, and being shut out of global opportunities. Now, the frustration runs deeper. It's no longer just about politics. It's about survival and purpose. A growing number of youth are asking if these post-independence institutions were ever truly meant to serve them, or just to keep things quiet until the next Western-approved leader takes over. And this is where ECOWAS faces a serious problem. It's not being attacked with violence. It's being hit with questions it can't answer. What have you done to support Africa's youth? What have you done to protect the continent's independence? What action have you taken against leaders who harm their own people? The more ECOWAS avoids these questions, the more its young critics speak up. And if nothing changes, ECOWAS won't be overthrown. It'll just be left behind. Can it be saved? That depends. Once people lose faith in an institution, they don't usually wait for it to fix itself. They build something new. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have started building something new. What began as a shared frustration with ECOWAS interference has grown into a bold and deeply African partnership, one that doesn't just challenge the old system, but offers a real alternative to it. This new alliance, known as the Alliance of Sahel States, didn't come together in fancy hotels or international meetings. It was born out of rejection. After ECOWAS punished and isolated these countries for not following its political timelines, they didn't back down, they reached out to each other. These three neighbors, all struggling with poverty and armed conflict, decided they were done waiting for outside approval. Together, they started shaping their own path. The result? A pact built on shared goals, political support, economic unity, and joint military action. And to the surprise of many, they're moving faster and more effectively than expected. While ECOWAS, with all its resources, struggled to build united military efforts, the Sahel Alliance is already running coordinated operations to fight extremist groups. Their armies share intelligence, weapons, and battlefield experience, working side by side to reclaim territory long lost to insurgents. They've also taken bold steps to cut military ties with France and set up their own defense systems. In both Mali and Burkina Faso, French military bases have been shut down or pushed out, yet instead of falling apart, these countries have grown stronger in managing their own security. The message is clear. They may be struggling, but they're far from defeated. Economically, they're also working toward freedom. One of their most ambitious ideas is to create a new regional currency, possibly backed by gold, to reduce their dependence on the CFA franc, a currency still tied to France. Though still in the early stages, this idea has caught the attention of activists and young economists across Africa. It's reigniting a long-standing dream that African countries can control their own money without needing a green light from Europe. At the same time, these leaders are pushing to make sure Africa's natural wealth benefits its own people. In Niger, where uranium is rich, the government is renegotiating unfair deals once dominated by French companies. In Burkina Faso, Captain Traoré is reclaiming control over parts of the gold sector. This alliance is sending a loud message. The era of foreign exploitation is coming to an end. But it's not just about security or money. Something bigger is shifting how people think. For years, African unity was just a feel-good slogan, more symbolic than serious. But in these three countries, unity is becoming something real. Instead of just being talked about in conference halls, it's being tested on the front lines in the heat of battle, in food crises, and under international pressure. That's exactly why young people across the region are getting behind it. It feels real. It feels earned. And for once, Africa seems to be at the center, not as a phrase in a speech, but as a real strategy. Meanwhile, ECOWAS watches nervously. With every win by the Sahel alliance, whether it's a successful military campaign, a renegotiated deal, or a push for economic independence, one truth becomes harder to ignore. The old system is being replaced, not by chaos, but by something new and African. ECOWAS, the bloc that attempted to coerce compliance, is today contributing more to regional collaboration and security than ECOWAS itself. This has left ECOWAS in a difficult diplomatic situation. It would be political suicide to reintegrate these nations without taking into account their desires. But the truth is, ECOWAS is still holding on to an outdated Model 1 that depends on foreign troops, insists on fixed election schedules, and follows trade rules often made in Europe, not Africa. This approach feels more and more disconnected from what's actually happening on the ground. Now, across West Africa, people are asking a bigger question. What if the Sahel alliance isn't just a temporary pushback, but the future? This new coalition is stepping up in ways ECOWAS never really managed to. It's facing down insecurity, standing firm on national independence, and trying to build stronger economies from within. Of course, the Sahel alliance isn't perfect. It still faces big challenges like planning for long-term leadership, protecting human rights, and staying financially stable. But its biggest achievement so far isn't about any one policy or military move. It's about proving something powerful, that countries in the region can trust each other and work together without needing ECOWAS to step in or Western powers to sign off. They're not waiting for donors or European consultants. They're making bold choices on their own. And in a region where outside control has long been the norm, that's a big deal. It's not threatening because it's extreme, it's threatening because it's working. This shift didn't happen through speeches or debates. It happened in the streets. Today, in the minds of many, ECOWAS has been replaced by the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES. In Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, thousands have come out in support of AES, not just to protest ECOWAS, but to celebrate a bloc they feel finally speaks for them. Once seen as a symbol of unity, ECOWAS is now accused of doing the West's bidding, protecting corrupt elites, and punishing countries that dare to choose their own path. Young people aren't waving ECOWAS flags anymore. They're flying AES banners. They're chanting the names of Tiani, Goita, and Traoré, not because of blind loyalty, but because they see real change happening. AES stands for more than just resistance. It's about building something new. They've talked about ditching the CFA franc, rejecting foreign control, and building their own defense systems. This isn't symbolic, it's a real plan for freedom. What started as defiance has become a roadmap for the future. And the people have made their choice not with weapons, but with unity and direction. In doing so, they've moved past more than just an ineffective institution. They've left behind the idea that ECOWAS still speaks for them. AES hasn't just replaced ECOWAS, it has inherited the hopes of a new generation. Do you think AES is now the true voice of West Africa? Can ECOWAS ever regain the people's trust? Let us know what you think in the comments. If you want to see more content like this, covering Black history, culture, and the greatness of African civilizations, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.